everybody. Welcome to Luvafoodie LinkedIn Live. I'm your host, Michelle Mazzara. Today is Monday, July 31st, the last day of July. It's been a while since I've done a show. I've been super busy. And before we get started, I want to tell everybody tomorrow is the beginning of our 9-year birthday month celebration. That's right, 9 years ago I started Luvafoodie. It seems like 9 years, but honestly we have some great promotions starting tomorrow, so make sure you're following us on all of our social media to see what kind of giveaways I'm going to be offering everybody online. But today, as many of you know, when I started Luvafoodie, it was all about love. That's what Luvafoodie was really based on. The passion to share your beverages and your food and the love of cooking. There's a fly around me, I apologize, with everyone. And that was the premise of Luvafoodie. So what better way to kick off our 9 years sharing a truly eternal love story today with you. I'm honored to have two very special guests that are going to share with you a heartfelt and a heartwarming story, their story about their love, their eternal love. So welcome Karen and Denny Vinar. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having us on your program.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Karen and Dennis. Well, before we get into your story, because it is one, if you're watching, everybody, go get some Kleenex because you might need it. Honestly, it's kind of a notebook type of love story. I met Karen and Dennis probably 4 or 5 years ago.
I'll say that,
Yeah, I was trying to sell in my Luvafoodie products as usual, and I said, well, and as you maybe can tell everybody, I'm not in my office today. I'm actually in Northfield, Minnesota. So I took a little road trip to Northfield, Minnesota, which is south of the Twin Cities, and I did that about 5 years ago. During the summertime, I thought, well, I want to get Luvafoodie into Northfield. So I was walking down Main Street and I stumbled on this beautiful little store called Petalina Gifts. And it was in the old historic Northfield Hotel, which actually burned down about a year ago due to a terrible fire. But anyway, I met Dennis and I met Karen, and I walked in and I had a bag full of stuff, and I started telling them about Luvafoodie, and we sat down at your table in the back, and they became my first and only customer in Northfield, Minnesota. And every day, Karen brews Luvafoodie all natural instant cold brew iced tea. They have a big sign outside of their store, which is called Petalina Gifts, right in the middle of Main Street, and they offer their customers free iced tea tastings every day. And they truly have the best cost and the best flavors in the store. So if you're in southern Minnesota or you want to take a road trip, come on down to Petalina Gifts. Their store is beautiful. They have a lot of Scandinavian and Norwegian items, unique cards, great destination, and it's right by Carleton School. And anyway, so that's the story how I know Dennis and Karen. But what we're here today is to talk about love. And they're going to share their story about their love story. They did write a book called How Did You Find Me? And they're also coming out with a movie. So this is a really cool story. So Karen and Dennis, take me back 60, 70 years ago.
Well, it all started in a small town called Brownton, Minnesota. Brownton is about 55 miles west of Minneapolis on 212. It's 12 miles west of Glenville and 15 miles south of Hutchinson. Small farming community, 500 to 600 people, and we grew up in the late 50s and early 60s there. And we were junior high and senior high school sweethearts. I started kissing Karen on the cheek when she was 12 and I was 14 underneath the baseball diamond there in Brownton. And when Karen was 15 and I was 17, we had a child. And we gave the baby up for adoption.
I want to show everybody how cute they were. Karen and Dennis, when they were, what, 15? How old were you here?
I was 15, Dennis was 17.
Okay. So you had this baby, and what happened, Karen? Did you get to stay living at your house, or did they send you to away?
Well, my parents, who were very supportive after I found out that I was pregnant, we talked with our pastor at our church, and because I was 15, even though Dennis had asked me to marry him, my parents thought we were much too young to get married. So our pastor suggested we go to Lutheran Social Services for some advice, which I did, and I went to Lutheran Social Services Home for Unwed Mothers in Minneapolis from May 1st until our baby girl was born on August 13th of 1961.
And you had made this decision to give the baby up for adoption.
Well, in those days, it was definitely taboo to have a child out of wedlock, and my parents didn't think we were, or I was ready to raise a child. Neither did they want to raise another child. I had one other sister, so they didn't want another child, but the only adoption, or the only option was adoption. At that time, abortion wasn't even considered, even if it was available, so that choice was pretty well made for us.
So you have this baby. Did you get to see the baby when it was born?
We did. If you show the cover of the book again, or I can.
Okay.
The
Oh, yeah.
picture, you're right, location here, the picture down in the lower right-hand corner was our baby when she was about 2 hours old. And I had called Dennis after the baby was born, and he came down to sign the birth certificate. So we were able to hold her for about 2 hours, I believe, before Lutheran Social Services representative came and took her away. So that was the last time we saw her.
It must have been really, really hard to hold this baby and then know that it was going to be given to, at that point, had they found a family for the baby girl?
No, not that we know of. I know later we found out that she was in a foster home for about 2 months, but at that time, we didn't have any idea where she was going to be placed. And it was a very emotional decision to be made, but I guess when faced with the options, we still made the right decision because she was adopted at 2 months old and had a wonderful life.
Yes, she did. Okay, so you go then, are you junior, sophomore? What year are you, Karen? When you have this baby?
I went back to school that year after having our baby, and I would have been a junior.
Okay, and Dennis, you were a senior. Did you two continue to date?
No, after the child was born, my mother and father and sister and brother and I, we left Brownfield, and I graduated from school at South High in Minneapolis. And after I graduated from high school, I went into the military. And Karen I went back to school. And
Karen, what did you do? Did you go on to college?
I did. After I finished high school, I did go on to college. I went to the University of Minnesota for 4 years and graduated from the U in 1967.
And then you both were able to find...
You Luvafoodie iced tea for...
I'm sorry about that. You both were able to find spouses and get married and have... Can you tell us a little bit, Karen, first? We'll start with you. What ended up happening to you as far as your personal life?
Well, after after I graduated from high school, I was really intent on finishing college in interior design. So my primary focus for the next 4 years was to get through the interior design program at the University of Minnesota. And after I graduated in 1967, I got a job in a furniture store in Roseville, and then moved on to a furniture store in St. Paul on Grand Avenue. And at that point, I did get married to someone else in 1980, I believe it was, and I did have a son. But in 2010, my first husband passed away.
And during that time, you somehow end up in Washington State, Seattle, Washington. How did that happen?
I did, yes.
I did,
At one
yes.
of
At
my
one of my positions,
I was at Partners for Design at International Market Square in Minneapolis. In 1997, the winters were so cold that year, I thought that I couldn't stand to live in this Minnesota climate any longer. So I applied for a number of different positions and ended up with a job at Canyon Creek Cabinet Company in Monroe, Washington. After I was there for 3 years, because I had designed their new facility there, my job was complete, so I moved on to a remodeling company in Redmond, Washington, and I became a certified master kitchen and bath designer while I was there.
Okay. And is that where your son lives?
I believe my son is living in Everett, Washington now, although I don't have great communication with him. I'm not sure where he ended up.
Okay. Dennis, what happens to you after the military?
Well, when I got out of the military, I came back to Minneapolis, and I went on to the university for a couple of years, and then I looked up Karen, and we dated for 4 or 5 months, and I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. She went home, she told her father and mother, and they said that they would not pay for her senior year of college because they wanted her to get an education. And they thought that if we got married, her education, she would have not continued that. So we broke up, and I went on to marry another lady, and we had 3 children. And I got into, I left school, and I went into sales. And I started working for a company, and was there for many, many years. Actually, almost 30 years. No, not so long. Actually, well, about 20 years, I suppose. But anyway, I got through with that, and then I came back to Minneapolis, and lived out in Monticello, and into Minneapolis. Then I got a divorce.
Okay.
And I was divorced for about 15 years. And then one night I was at a party, and this woman asked, who wants to play a game? And I said, come on, give me a break. You're at a party. Everybody wants to play a game at a party. So she said one question, and the question was, if your primary physician gave you 60 days to live, who's one person you'd like to sit down and take out to Starbucks or out to dinner? And it went around the room, and people there were pondering between a movie star and a politician. I'm sure they're nice people. I had nothing to do with them. And it came to me, and I said, Karen Lehman. And I said, who is she? I said, she's a junior high school sweetheart. Where does she live? Don't know. Is she married? Don't know. Does she have a family? Don't know. And then time out. You guys asked me a question, I gave you the answer. Well, and the next day I was watching the Vikings, and a friend of mine from New Orleans asked me, Nat asked me to call him to join you on LinkedIn. So I did. And then after I did that, then I saw the search bar up there, and I just thought, what the heck, I'll just put in Karen and her maiden name, because I didn't know if she was married or whatever. So I just put in Karen Lehman there. She was the third person down on the left-hand side. And from there, I just, I called the next day, which was on a Monday, and I waited till it was 1 o'clock. As you all know, on LinkedIn, they tell you you're a professional. Information where other social media don't.
So did you find Karen's phone number on LinkedIn?
No.
No? How did-
What I found on LinkedIn about Karen is that she worked at this store in Everett, Washington. So I called the next day and asked the receptionist, I just, I shot in the dark here now. I said, you know, would you happen to have an appointment with Karen Lehman? She said, yes. I said, well, let me talk to her. She says, I can't. Well, yeah, I said, you can. She said, no, I can't. So I said, okay. So I said, you got, then she said, I take a message. I said, well, I said, you got my name, you got my number on your screen. Tell her an old friend of 50 years ago called, his name was Dennis, and she called me back in 10 minutes. The first thing she said to me was, how did you find me? That's the name of our book. And then she said she couldn't talk now. She called me that night, about 8:30.
And how many years ago was this?
This happened in, this happened in 2014.
Okay.
1965, 2014, 49 years. And then, we started talking, got through the small talk, and I explained to her, if you're single, if I'm single, where am I flying to? She said, Seattle. I said, I'll see you tomorrow, so I get your flight out tonight.
Seriously? You said you were going to get on the next flight from Minneapolis?
In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And
did Karen say, wait, slow down, slow down? That would be me. Wait.
She says, we have to get to know each other. I said, sweetheart, get to know each other. We got a child together, we're pretty capable of waiting. She said, no, we have, might have changed. So she made me wait another 90 days.
Karen, I love it. Playing hard to get.
I went home and Googled him so that I would know what he looked like, but I call it a 90-day virtual courtship because we talked on the phone and texted every single day.
Yeah.
And then by those 90 days, you couldn't wait, right? You were so excited.
Exactly.
So I'm sure you didn't say, okay, I'm going to put it, it's not like the 1 or 2 day to 3 day rule, whatever people's rules are. I don't even know anymore. But it just happened to be 90 days. It wasn't like using it.
No, it didn't happen that way. Every year I always took the West Coast swing to see my daughter and grandson in Santa Monica and my son and his family up in Portland. And I told Karen, I said, I won't be able to talk to you much in January because I'm taking the West Coast swing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then she said, why don't you fly up to see me? And we started talking about getting married then. And so we got there, I got there on January 20th, 2015 at 8:30, and she picked me up at 8:34 p.m. And we got married 36 hours later.
Are you serious?
I'm very serious. That's the way it happened. And
So you just, okay, there's a light, Karen, move over a little closer to Dennis because there's a light shining in.
There's a light
Yeah,
reflecting there. off
that's
the
good, yeah,
windshield.
we both were seeing that. All right, so wait a minute, you fly in, you haven't seen each other, and you say, without even, like, you've already decided in 2 days you're getting married?
yeah.
And Karen, you agreed to it?
Well, it wasn't like we just decided that on the spot. It was at Christmas time, I believe, when we were still separated, that Dennis said, this is the last Christmas we'll be apart.
Okay.
So we had already talked about getting married.
Okay.
To the fact that he originally said he was going to be in Las Vegas in April for a trade show. Why didn't I come to Las Vegas, join him in Las Vegas, and we would get married there? So I had already done some research on getting married in Las Vegas, but when I reported that to him, Dennis said, well, why do we have to wait so long? Why don't we get married in January when I come to visit you?
Funny.
So I went to the courthouse in Everett and got the marriage license. It was good for 60 days, and and we had to wait at least 3 days before we could use it. So I bought the license, sent it to Dennis via mail with my information on it. He filled out his information, had it notarized, and sent it back. So we had the license and the date already planned before he even came.
Nice. So, Dennis, did you come with a ring?
No, she didn't want a ring. She wanted to take her
Grandmother's wedding band, yeah.
her grandmother's wedding band and get it made smaller. So we did. And then I had a ring that I wore on my right hand, but I just switched it over to another because I really like it. I still wear it today.
Why is this?
It's a. I won't say the brand name because I was told I was conscious. I know every brand I got at cheap place. So.
Did I just lose you guys?
No, we're here.
I think we're here.
We can't see you.
Oh. Okay, keep talking.
And after we got married in January, I always came out there and. Well, see, first of all, Karen had a. Why don't you tell this part what you had to sell? Your 10-acre hobby farm.
Oh, well, when we got married 36 hours later after he flew into Seattle, we were trying to determine where we were going to live.
Okay.
I thought that I didn't want to go back to Minnesota because of the cold winters. And we had talked about possibly both retiring to northern Arizona because they have 4 seasons, which we both like, and it was a narrower temperature range. Not so hot as Phoenix and not so cold as Minnesota, so we were kind of thinking about possibly moving to northern Arizona.
Okay.
And I still had a 10-acre piece of property to sell in Washington. Even when I moved to Eden Prairie, where Dennis was living, I still hadn't moved completely out of my house in Monroe, Washington. So Dennis would fly from Minnesota to Seattle every month to see me. January when he came in and we got married, February, March, April, May, they were all the rainy season months.
Right.
And Dennis didn't like the rainy Pacific Northwest weather there, so I guess northern Arizona seemed like the right place for us to move. However, we didn't get that far south. We're now in Northfield.
So let me ask you, and then move a little bit closer because that sun is coming in a little bit. Yeah. When you were reunited and started living together as a married couple, did it seem like you were 14 and 17 again, or did it seem like you were starting? I mean, how did you? So many years have passed. You've grown into adults, into later life. How did it seem to just be together again?
Well, after that 3-month virtual courtship and being married, it seemed like we had been together for 50, 60 years, forever. It
did,
didn't
okay.
seem like that long a time had gone into effect. It was quite normal for us.
So, Karen, did you meet Dennis's children then when you moved back to Minnesota, and how did they, I guess, receive you? Or, you were a new woman in Dennis's life, not their mother, but, how sometimes that can be tricky too.
Well, initially we went to Portland, Oregon to visit one of his sons and daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren, and they received me very well. Then when I got back to Minnesota, I think we were having our wedding reception, and the night before the actual wedding reception, everybody in his family immediate family, I should say, went to dinner. And the youngest grandchild at that time came over to me. I don't know how old Phoenix was at the time, do you
I
remember?
think Phoenix is about 6,
6 or
he's-
7?
yeah, 6 or 7, he's 16 now, yeah.
He came over to me and put his arm around me, gave me a hug, and he said, "Welcome to the family, Karen."
Oh, nice, nice. So
So
they
that,
were,
that was really sweet. And after that, all of the family just welcomed me with open arms.
nice. So 10 years now, you've been together, but I want to know, you're back in Northfield, Minnesota. Let's talk about her. Let's talk about what happened and how she came back into your lives, because this is really the heart-wrenching part of it. Well, it's all heart-wrenching.
Shortly after we got married, maybe even before, I can't quite remember when it started, Dennis started asking me if I had ever considered looking for our daughter. Wasn't I curious about where she was, what she looked like? Is she married? Does she have a family? Does she need any medical advice or anything regarding her medical history? And I kept saying, no, she's 54 years old. It would be improper for us to enter into her life at this time. We would be invading her privacy. She's probably married with a family. But one day, Dennis said, "It took me this long to find you, Karen. It would be," how did you phrase it now? It would make my life complete if we could find our daughter. So I couldn't resist any longer. I said, okay, what do we do? So we went to Lutheran Social Services with the question about how do we go about finding her. And to our luck, we should say, or maybe it was divine intervention, Jean had gone to Lutheran Social Services when their first child was born, looking for medical information. You know, you go to the doctor and they
Now,
ask
Jean
you
is
to-
the daughter. Jean is your daughter.
Yes,
Okay.
our daughter, right. You go to the doctor and they want all your medical history, and she had none. So she went to Lutheran Social Services to find out a little bit more about her medical background and what she calls opened the file. She had left her contact information, her married name, and said she was open to being found, although now she said she probably would never have initiated a search herself. She was willing to be found.
Okay.
So that's what started that process. Initially, the caseworkers gave us the pros and cons of finding her. She may not be available, may not even be alive, may not want us to see her, biological parents. But we proceeded to write the required letter and pay the deposit to start the search. And because we were so fortunate in her leaving her contact information, they were able to find her in about 45 days. However, they still had to go through the protocol of being rather inconspicuous, I should say, with just a P.O. box on the return address and just a cryptic message about we have information. A family member is seeking you for information. I don't know how it was worded, something very cryptic.
So she didn't know that her birth parents were trying to find her. In the communication she received from social services didn't say your birth parents are trying to find you?
That's correct.
How come? Do you know why?
Well, like I said, the protocol that Lutheran Social Services had to go through, they had to be careful as to what they would relay to her.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that actually works, but they still had to be kind of anonymous in
Okay.
their correspondence.
So then she receives this communication, and then it's up to her to say, yes, I would like to know who this family member is?
That's correct,
And
but
that- Okay.
her husband, Andrew, who got the mail, almost threw it in the wastebasket, thinking that it was a scam or some long-lost cousin looking for money, or something.
Sure.
Not that important, but they were, I guess her husband opened the mail and he said to Jean, our daughter, to take a look at it, and she was too busy to really care much about it at the time, so she said, oh, you deal with it, Andrew. And he did a little bit of research, I guess. They finally recognized that the address or the zip code on the envelope was the same zip code as Lutheran Social Services, because they lived in that same zip code when they were both in college. So that's what made them a little bit more curious about looking a little bit deeper into this letter.
So I want to know, so she eventually, they connect you. Tell me about, because we only have an hour show and I want to get to the movie too. I want to know about the day that you were all reunited. Where did it take place? How did it take place? What was that like?
Well, that took place on May 31st
Okay.
of 2016. The Lutheran Social Services asked us to come over to their place on Como Avenue in St. Paul.
Okay.
So we went up there, and as soon as we walked in the room, as we were walking upstairs to the second floor, I tapped Karen on the shoulder and I said, you know, hon, we do not have to go through with this. We can turn around. She said, no, we came this far, let's continue. So we did, and as soon as we got into the room, there were tears and hugs and crying, and even the social worker, she was crying, and of course, we were, all of four of us were, and
So did she come up to you, or did you embrace her, or how was it?
immediately we kind of met halfway. We got through the doorway and around a real, actually a 10-foot table. And she came around, she gave us a hug, and the first thing she said, or one of the first things Jean said was, now I actually look like someone. And that was a big
I'm gonna start to cry. That's so sweet. So did you, when you saw her, did you know, oh my God, this is our child. She looks like, and I really don't know what she looks like now, but does she look like Dennis? Does she look like Karen? Does she look like both of you?
Well, one time, we will talk back a couple months. When I was out of town on a business trip to Michigan, Karen had a friend come over, and with the picture on the cover of the book, Karen still has it, that picture. You know.
Oh, here she is right here.
Yeah.
She's adorable. She looks like both of you. She's the pretty blonde.
Well, that picture on the front cover, she was
That's
two
the baby.
hours old.
Yeah.
2 hours
And
old.
Lutheran
Yeah.
Social Services came and got her up to her because of the mother-daughter bonding. They couldn't have that.
They couldn't have that.
Right.
And then, but on the flip side, on the back cover, there she's a 54-year-old. And that's her husband, Andrew.
Right.
And it's been a love story ever since. But we-
So she's in your life now, and tell everybody the interesting thing, and this is, I don't know if this is fate, but you moved to Northfield, and Jean doesn't live far from here.
Well, that's kind of how we got to Northfield, is
Yeah.
after we found her and she found out that we were considering moving to Arizona. She said, why would you move so far away when you just found me? Have you ever considered Northfield? Well, we hadn't considered Northfield because it was still in Minnesota. But we came down here in the summer and walked up and down Division Street, had lunch, went to the library, which is a very nice Carnegie Library, went to the senior center, which is now called 50 North, and we thought, well, this is a pretty nice town. So we considered living here, and Dennis wanted to find an apartment to test it out, so to speak, whether we'd like it here. But when we were telling our daughter that, she said, oh, I know a realtor. So she got us in contact with a realtor, and we actually bought a house here in Northfield then in 2016.
And so Jean is a very much part of your life. She sometimes helps out at the store. She has children, is that correct?
She has, she and Andrew have 3 grown daughters, 2 of whom are married with children. So not only did we gain 3 more grandchildren for a total of, now it's 10. But we also gained 5 great-grandchildren. And yes, they are part of our lives. We see Jean and Andrew quite frequently, maybe a couple times a month. Not so often on the grandkids because they're kind of scattered all over. But
Sure. So you've been on TV shows locally in Minnesota, you've been in the newspaper, but tell everybody what's happening next. You're going to Hollywood, or Hollywood's coming here.
Well, first
Let's
of all, this here's the second edition. And out of the second edition, we have this is our 5th printing. We have sold over.
Oh yeah, your book.
Yeah, of the book. We have sold over 5,000 copies of this book.
And Dennis, can you get this on, I know you can get it in your store, but is this on Amazon?
Well, you can buy it from Amazon, but you can buy it easier from us, and we would appreciate it more.
So if I'm not in Northfield, if I'm in Chicago or California, how can I buy this from you?
On our website.
On your website?
on the Petalina website, it's available in print form. On Amazon, it's available as an ebook and an audio book.
Okay.
But the print book is available here in Northfield in person or on our website, petalinagifts.com.
And you'll ship this anywhere in the United States?
Absolutely.
And what is the retail price?
$19.95.
$19.95. Okay, so everybody, where I've got 21,000 plus viewers and social people, this is a great love story. This is doesn't happen too often that. Well, I've never heard of it happening. That it's you coming out with a movie, and I said call it eternal love, because really that's what it is. It's your love for each other, your love for your child. The fact that it's come full circle and you're all together as a family is phenomenal, and it's a beautiful story. So tell us quickly, because we are going to run out of time, tell us about how you were approached by a movie producer, and when will the movie come out? I know you're still being interviewed, but this will be a fantastic movie.
Well, we have a screenwriter guild. She's a member of the screenwriter guild, and
It's a production company in California.
yeah, the production company in California called Voyager. We talked to a producer out there called Denise Carlson, and she told us that the genre was non-fiction and drama and adoption, love story. And then she said, "You are missing something." And we said, "What was that?" She said, "It's faith-based." And we've done over 125 author events through Minnesota, North and South Dakota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois, but that was pre-COVID. And ever since the second or third author event, and Karen said it was a divine intervention, and that's what this producer Denise Carlson said down in California. She said it's faith-based, and it really is a faith-based story, because it's like Karen said, it's a divine intervention. God had a say in this whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a very spiritual person myself. I think you both are very religious and have a strong faith in God. And I know you go to church on Sundays and you're active in your parish or your church. And I do believe that even though Jean may not have actively sought to find her parents and you were the initiators, I believe that there was probably something in her heart that needed to be healed or, completely full circle for her, and that was also bringing you together. So it's three people together that, I don't know what happened to them, that really needed to come together.
She said that she always felt like she was not quite a member of the family, though she loved her adopted family very much. They didn't quite think like she did. And I get this through the chapters that she reads. We collaborated on writing this book with four of us. Dennis and I and Jean and her husband Andrew all have chapters written in first person about the paths their lives took as a result of decisions being made. And in several of Jean's chapters, she has these emotions come through very well in the way she writes. That she just never quite felt accepted.
Sure. And yet you've told me offline, or I know she had a very loving childhood, and two wonderful people raised her as her parents, so she did have a good upbringing.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. But, I can understand that feeling that she must have had, wondering and not feeling 100% complete. So it is truly a beautiful story. I'm happy to share it with all my viewers today. I encourage everybody who's watching to order this book. It's a great love story. It's a great story. If, I think young, old, anyone would enjoy reading this book. And I'm excited to see it on full screen. We're running out of time. Do you have any kind of time frame when you think a movie would actually be in production?
Well, not now, because as everyone knows, both the
They're on strike.
the Screenwriters Guild and the Actors Guild, they're on strike.
Right.
And who knows what.
Who knows?
But we're going to go to the faith-based companies. We're not going to be with. It's not we asked this producer if it's a Hallmark movie, and she said no, it's not. It's not. Our Lifetime, and she no. So we're going to go. But she said it's a faith-based story, and that's what we want to really get along. Get across because of the fact that God really had a tremendous, he had all the say-so in this whole thing, everything.
Yep. And I think that's important. I have a lot of LinkedIn connections in the entertainment industry, and anyone who, I guess the movie isn't 100% put to bed, so Dennis, if I'm hearing you right, could somebody contact you and do
Yes.
something with this story?
Absolutely. I've been working on this book 7 years now.
Okay.
Absolutely. No question.
Okay, so everybody out there, all my viewers, all my followers, if you cannot reach Dennis and Karen on your own, contact me. You know how to get a hold of me, Michelle at Luvafoodie.com. I will get you in touch with Karen and Dennis. I've known them for a long time. I have their emails. I have their phone numbers. We meet to get my products. If you're in Minnesota, take a little road trip to Northfield. It's a charming little town. Jesse James Days are coming up the first weekend in September. It's a lot of fun. Karen and Dennis run this shop. They're here every day. They're a charming couple. They've charming gifts. It's worth the half-an-hour drive from the cities. Dennis and Karen, before we end, is there anything else I've missed or anything else you want to share with our listeners and our viewers?
I think you can purchase the book through howdidyoufindme.com or on our website, Petalina website. Is this right?
PetalinaGifts.com.
Yeah, PetalinaGifts.com. Petalina is spelled Petalina, gifts, GIFTS.com. PetalinaGifts.com.
And our brick and mortar store is at 313 Division Street in Northfield.
Great. Well, it's been, I like to do all sorts of stories on LinkedIn, not just entrepreneur stories or food or beverage stories. This has been really a charming story for me to share with everybody, and especially going into our birthday month, which is Luvafoodie, is based on love. And what better way to say happy birthday to Luvafoodie, to have you two on. So I thank you for your time. Thank you for being my guests. Thank you for being my customers and supporting Luvafoodie and also supporting me. And it's been a real pleasure.
One last thing.
Yes.
When you come to Northfield, if you choose to, stop in at our store and we'll give you a glass of tea.
That's right. Every
Cold
day.
tea, yes. Raspberry, we sell a lot of it.
You do. You sell a lot of it.
And everyone's welcome, of course.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you,
ma-
Michelle.
Thank you both. And LinkedIn Live viewers, I don't know when I'll be doing my next show. When I do them when I find a story that I really think everyone will enjoy, and this is one of them. And when it's worth me taking time out of my busy schedule, and this was certainly worth my time and my little trip to Northfield today. So have a great week. Remember everybody, tomorrow is the kickoff of our birthday month, so tune in, follow us. I've got a great deal, a great promotion, and I'm going to save it for tomorrow, so I'll be posting it then. Thank you, everybody.